Welcome everyone to the Lean Into Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Sally Lean, and I'm thrilled that you're joining us today on the podcast to hear more about how my guests have been succeeding and or overcoming challenges from their teenage years by using their own version of my formula for success in terms of what they've leaned into, what they have leaned out from along the way, and who they've leaned on in their journey. Today, I'm fortunate to have an amazing guest who happens to be studying mechanical engineering, and he's also doing a certificate in material science and a minor in mathematics. And he's earned himself a full ride scholarship to one of the most prestigious and highly ranked universities in the USA, Duke University in North Carolina, or Duke, as I like to say in the South. All right, let's bring Senou Kounouho to the stage now. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And opposite ends of the earth here. Am I in Wagga Wagga down under in Australia and you're over there? And I just wanted to, I guess, preface our conversation today by acknowledging that I've actually known you, I think, all of your life. In fact, and before I knew your parents before you even came along. So
Yes.
your mum and dad, I was privileged to meet in my initial first travels overseas when I went to study in China for a year as part of my university degree. And they happened to be both studying in China and met there. Now, over the years, one thing led to another, and your parents ended up getting married.
hmm
Um, and dad is from Benin in Africa.
Yes.
Mum is from Japan. Whereabouts in Japan is she from again?
Osaka.
Osaka, yeah, right.
hmm
So she's, and then here you and your sister are born and brought up in Phoenix, Arizona. So,
Yes.
there's this whole concept of
Yeah.
third culture kids, but also immigrant first generation Americans born there. All of those things and the layers and layers of amazing richness that comes from that background that you're privileged to have. So what an
hmm
amazing story and journey I'm sure you'll be able to share with a little bit about that today. And yeah, so I know that you went to school in Phoenix and you'll be able to tell us a little bit about that, and also got to attend an international school, which is great. So yeah, if you could maybe just give us a little bit of background starting there, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So from born and raised Phoenix, Arizona and all the way through. Love the desert. Yeah, it was very nice place to grow up. I went to, let's see, high school at a place called Peoria, which is a kind of well-known high school. Nationally, it's doing very well, as far as like rankings and things like that. But it was definitely international in the sense that like the people that I was surrounded by, a lot of students were of like Indian heritage, Asian heritage, largely because that area of Phoenix happens to have a lot of people of those ethnicities living there, working at some nearby like hospitals and companies. And so it was a great place to grow up, great place to go to school, kind of creating this environment of people who were very interested in achieving, very interested in working hard. And there's very much like this kind of camaraderie of, we're all getting through these hard classes together and going through that together. So that was indeed a great experience and kind of set up a lot of values and things that I continue to practice today. Yeah, definitely I can
Yeah.
elaborate on that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, tell us, I mean, in terms of, high school experience, I know from my own experience too, some of the things, translate, but then there's new skills required once you get to university and you have a lot more sort of self-responsibility, autonomy, all of that sort of thing as well,
hmm
right? So
Yes.
and I know that, your dad, being in business for many years and he's very big on networking. So sort of tell us how you, in the transition from high school to university, how did you make the transition? And then after that, I'll ask you a little bit about how you went about applying to get your scholarship. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, this is always a really kind of interesting topic to talk about. One that like even in college, me and my friends and people I meet, it's like a big conversation of what that transition was like. Because it's different for everybody, right? For me specifically, um, I went to a school where I was with the same people from fifth grade through 12th grade. It's kind of a smaller
Mhm.
school. Fifth grade is about 300 kids. And as you kind of go up, it whittles down until we have a class of about 60 seniors graduating, all of whom basically have been there for seven or so years. So really got to know that group of people really well, that community really well, right? All my high school friends, I had known them since middle school. They knew who I was. And that made it possible to do a lot in that space, get involved in lots of clubs, take leadership roles, whether it be like in that
Mhm.
honor society and things like that. Even going to helping out with the plays and musicals. Um, and that was kind of a very familiar territory. Then, you move to college, everything's new. I'm going from a group of 60 to a group of about 6,000 people who are now my peers in undergrad. And yeah, it does become a little bit of a challenge to like navigate. I'm no longer the guy who is known for doing all these leadership roles and being involved in stuff and caring about this community. I'm just like one of many, and then you kind of start over.
Mhm.
You got to start building the reputation over again. So that was
Yeah.
definitely challenging. But definitely, I think I learned a lot about networking, about meeting new people, how important it is to find people who kind of have similar values and have similar goals, and kind of building that relationship through college. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, amazing. So, um, I guess, being the old saying, right? A bit of a slightly bigger fish in a smaller pond, and it's a whole other, experience when you jump out of your smaller fish pond
Yeah.
and into a much, much bigger one, right?
Yes.
So you have to learn to swim in a new current, when there's a lot more people around you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and what are some of the things that you've done or that you've found have helped with that in terms of the transition, transitioning and getting yourself settled and established, I guess?
Mhm.
What are the things that have helped?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
definitely some things that I've kind of helped lean into, kind of been leaning into as I enter into university. I definitely met a lot of people. Like, kind of used for my first year to be very liberal as far as like who I would hang out with, who I'd talk to, being interested in people, looking to ask questions, figure out where people are from, what they're interested in, what their goals are, what their like dreams are, what they want to do in college. I think that one thing that I'd say is a strength is being curious, and that kind of flowed out into being more outgoing in greedy areas the first year. Um, so that was very good. So that allowed me to kind of meet a large group of people. I see people I know every single day all over campus, and are able to say hi, which is always great. Um, and then I think maybe another thing I might say that I leaned into that was especially helpful was looking for older students who were kind of had a little bit ahead of me, but who were mentors in the sense of knowing what Duke was like, knowing what resources existed. That was extremely helpful for me, because the first couple of years here were very much like an exploratory time. I was not entirely sure what major I was going to pick, and switched around to do different things. And having those people there allowed me to like do that in a way that did not sacrifice, future like
Mhm.
career or things like that. Keeping those things in mind while also trying to have as much flexibility as possible. So,
Yeah.
mentors and friends. That's those two things. Yeah.
Amazing. And from, the way that you speak about it, one of the things that's obvious is when you are actively seeking
Hmm.
out mentorship, then it is even more possible, don't rather than being passive and
Yes.
hoping that someone will help you, really actively seeking out people who will be able to give you at least some sort of advice, right? And then fitting the puzzle pieces in for yourself in terms of what works for you and
Hmm.
moving forward, like you say, being mindful of the pathway forward, but also rearranging a few things now such that you're getting the future that you want rather than kind of feeling like you're lost in the
Yes.
in the fray of
Yes.
things.
Lost. Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yes. Yeah. Uh,
I mean, yeah, because it can be full on, right? When
yeah.
especially the way that you guys do it in the US tends to be that figuring out the first couple of years and then sort of really moving into your major and minor sort of direction that you're heading.
Yeah,
So
I did definitely come in with like a pretty specific idea of what I wanted to do. It just turned out that it was completely unrealistic, so had to learn a little bit of humility there. I was very interested in, and this is one of the reasons I definitely chose Duke as a school was to study the combination of engineering and then public policy in that area, which is an area which Duke is known for, having a good graduate school in that area. Um, However, that's unrealistic to do in 4 years, is to get both degrees. That was definitely a learning experience of, allowing myself to step back from that and realize that, taking
Mhm.
classes and only doing that is not everything. And that's something that some of these older students kind of helped show me. And so then that
Mhm.
gave the opportunity to take a different path and yeah, discover more.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting how things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, I started out doing a double degree in a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Asian Studies. And, obviously majoring in Chinese, having met your mum and dad in China,
Mm-hmm.
that was one definitely one of the things that I really wanted to. My intention was to really, focus on building my Chinese language skills and anyway, as it happened, I discovered that numbers and accounting really not my language at all, and I really didn't enjoy it. So, and probably was not heading to do very well in that area. So I withdrew from that degree and decided to focus on the Asian studies, much to my, particularly my dad's chagrin, because he was very concerned that what are you going to be able to do just with an arts degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, but my intention was always to, you're thinking about perhaps an international career in foreign affairs, with languages and things like that. The reason I chose languages, and I loved science at school too, the reason I chose languages is because I wanted to travel.
Mm-hmm.
So, and have some opportunities to work internationally. So I thought, oh, well, if I had studied Chinese in middle school, and we moved to a regional city where my parents still, to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no Chinese available once we moved out of the city, out
I
of
see.
Melbourne. So then I had to rethink what do I want? Where am I going? What do I want in life? And little did I know, actually, while I was at university, I heard about scholarships from my state government, which were it was I probably shouldn't admit to it. It was during the 90s. Don't do the math on that. When the Australian government was refocusing sort of their foreign policy into sort of away from Mother England and Big Brother America and more into the Asia Pacific region, really into our own backyard kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of money, government money around for school education, focusing on Asian studies and Asian languages and all that sort of thing. So I took the scholarship. Was a 3-year scholarship. In return, I had to teach for 3 years, and I remember putting my money in the payphone in the lobby at my college and calling my parents to say, I'm going to apply for this scholarship. And my dad was like, you don't want to be a teacher, do you? And I was like, well, no, it's only 3 years and then I can get a real job. And I still to this day remember I laugh about that sentence, because who knew, once I actually did graduate, and I did another year in a grad dip in education, so a graduate year to get my teaching qualifications. And then I started teaching, but who knew that I would really love it? I loved
Nice.
teaching. I loved being able to, I loved learning Chinese myself. I love teaching. I love teaching that to the kids and just building that curiosity and, awareness of the world and all of that sort of thing. So, yeah, who knew that would happen?
Yeah.
And then, a very successful international career, from teaching locally in my home state, not far from my hometown, to moving international. Who knew that would, sort of come from an initial, well, maybe I could do this,
Right. Right.
and figuring out what I didn't want to do. So I scratched the commerce off the list, focused on what I did want to do, and then, followed my heart and my passion all the way through. And I think the other thing that I have lived by before I had like I guess a term to put to it is to say yes, then figure out how. So
Mm-hmm.
when something feels right, or you really feel like that's something that you might benefit you, say yes and then figure out how to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or I guess the flip side is true, right? When we say no to the things that aren't working or perhaps don't feel right, then we get, sort of take something out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
and so we can pursue new things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's like really, I think that's a great example also of like seeing how, each step you're taking, it's like you're learning more about like what possibilities exist and then using that to make the next choice. And then, you might end up somewhere where you don't intend, but like that you may not ever see. I mean, did you like, was that feasibly when you made that choice, was teaching like the career that you were having in mind? Maybe not, but that's it's really cool to see
No,
that.
it certainly was it was
Yeah.
never on the cards until I heard about that scholarship, and I thought, "Oh,
Yeah.
actually, that'd be, that'd be fun." I had
Yeah.
done some I was actually doing part-time teaching before I even finished university, just, like in a Saturday school program.
Mm,
So I thought, "Well, why not, right?
yeah.
Why not do that?" And if I only have to the agreement was for 3 years, 3 years of scholarship, 3 years to
Mm,
teach. And I thought, "Well, yeah, I can do that, and then I can go and do something else," but I never did. I have done other things, but it's all been in the realm of education since then.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, good question. Thank you for asking me
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so how did you get into the process or hear about or, the scholarship, and tell us about that process because I'm sure there'd be quite a few listeners out there to be interested to hear.
So just also a little bit details about the scholarship itself. It's called the Angier B. Duke Scholarship at Duke University. So it's a full ride, pays for lodging, food, that kind of stuff. I learned about that through actually seeing another student from my school win that scholarship. So this is not, the chances of this are very low. But the I had in the year that I entered freshman year, one of the seniors won this scholarship to Duke
Wow.
University. His name was Shreyas Solar. He's actually currently doing a Rhodes Scholarship in the UK. Very bright guy. Awesome guy.
Wow.
Yes.
Yep.
So very much somebody I look up to. And so he had won this. I remember being in freshman year. I didn't really think too much about college at that point in ninth grade. But kind of seeing this and being like, okay, I'll remember this when I get to my own senior year in high
File it
school.
away.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And so, of course, when it rolls around, when I went through the college application process, basically the agreement with the parents was, unless I get financial aid, I'm not going outside of Arizona. Was like kind of the agreement, which I found really reasonable. Right, a lot of people pay a lot of money to go to college, which makes complete sense. It is like an investment that you choose. But for us, it basically the value was like to go outside of Arizona and not go to Arizona State University, which is a great university. If I wanted to take another step, then I would need to earn that, earn financially and make it work. And so Duke was on the list of those schools I applied to, which had scholarships, and there are many others. And after that, it was just the process of putting in the work of making a good application. They look at for that scholarship particularly. They look at all the applications that come into Duke University. So it's about 50,000 people, which is a lot.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Wow.
and
That's a
yes,
lot of applications to wade through, right?
yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's extraordinary what they do every year. But so at that point, it is very much like there's definitely some luck, but was managed to get my application pulled out of the pile. Went through a interview process, and then got a phone call later for that. Yeah.
Amazing. And I heard that you also got accepted to other universities and then had to make a choice. Tell
Yes,
us
it
about that.
was definitely a tough choice. So at the end, the realistic options were Duke University, Arizona State, or University of Arizona. I had gotten a scholarship for a full ride inside of Arizona as well, and then a scholarship to Lafayette College, which is a school in Pennsylvania, which is very
Mhm.
well known for its interdisciplinary education. So those were like realistically the options that I was choosing between at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes. But you got accepted to others as well, right? Just not with the scholarship option. Is that
That's
correct?
true. Yes, I did put
You
in.
got offers from?
Yes,
Tell us about the wider list as well.
yeah, I did put in applications um, to, let's see, what did I get into? Uh, yes, I applied to, let's see, Stanford, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, University of Michigan, um, Claremont McKenna College, which is a great small liberal arts college in California. Um, yeah, and I got in everywhere. I did not.
Wow.
So which was very surprising. But it was definitely, I think, owing a lot to the work put into the scholarship or the application essays in that process. Mhm.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Did you get a lot of guidance through your school for that?
I think I was very fortunate. The way in which our program works is that um, senior year, the class load is reduced because a lot of the requirements for graduation are satisfied before. And so we spend a lot of time, yes, doing applications and having guidance there.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, so sounds like a very smart sort of organization of the school as well,
Yeah.
such that you can focus on those because it's pretty critical,
Hmm.
um, to be able to do that, do it well, and then, like yourself, have some incredible options to choose from.
Yes.
And maybe even two tiers of options that the amazing ones, woohoo, look, I got into Harvard.
Yeah.
And then the ones where you're looking and saying, all right, but realistically, these are where I'm selecting from. But what still an incredible array that you're selecting from. So yeah, congratulations on all of that and the work that I know that you put in, and mum and dad supporting in the background. What are some of the things oh, there's my computer. What are some of the things that your parents did well that did sorry, not did well, but did to support you that you really, can look back now? By the way, are you okay to share with us how old you are now?
21. Yeah, 21 now. Yes.
21. Yeah. So you've been in college for this is your what, 3rd year?
Third year, end of the third year.
3rd
Yes.
year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, just finished finals. Whew, whew, whew.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so end of your 3rd year, 21 now. When you look back from this perspective, what do you see, mum and dad, maybe your community, what are the things that have supported you well along the way?
Yes. I definitely will say that my parents have always been very big role models for me. I think my dad has always been a very good, very important role model of like work ethic and working hard and doing excellent work and taking pride in doing excellent work. As like seeing that as kind of a reflection of values and being seeing importance in what you're doing and doing it well. So I take that a lot from him. I think my mother has always been a great example to me of being kind and making sure to treat everyone well and being involved in the community that I find myself in, wherever it might be. So very much like in the essays I chose to write for my colleges, those things came through. In the way that I approached university, those things came through. And like the roles I
Mhm.
chose to take. So that's always been very much the case. Both of them are been very supportive. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Great. Yes, and your sister is now younger sister, also off at college, I
Yes.
understand?
Yes. Younger sister Mika is doing nursing at the University of Arizona. She's in her second year right now. Actually, just started the nursing program this last semester,
Yeah.
officially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And do you get home often? Do you get to see them?
Um, Definitely during the winter for New Year's, around New Year's, that's very important to us. So I definitely go home every year. During many of the summers, I'm off, interning somewhere and doing research and things like that. So not as often as I'd like, but yes.
Yeah, definitely not as often as I'm sure your parents would like, but, thank goodness for video calls and,
Yes,
being able to keep in touch that
yes,
way these days,
yes,
so, yeah,
yes.
voice messages and all of that,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So, what about, some any challenges that you may have had to face and figure out a way forward, or, things that you've had to maybe lean out from, as we say, so
Hmm.
that you maybe have had to consciously decide not to be doing things, when because there's always a lot of opportunities,
Yeah.
right? So how have you sort of sifted through all of that?
Mm. I definitely think that one of the biggest transitions from high school to college was uh, being responsible for, not only doing everything you're doing, but also taking care of yourself in the process, right? And
Mm.
that's, I think, one of the things I appreciate much more in hindsight is the amount in which, my parents have helped me, even just transportation to school and to different activities and feeding me and making sure I'm going to sleep and making sure I'm waking up and doing all these things, that when you get to college, now it's like suddenly all these things become your own responsibility. So definitely
Mhm.
the first 2 years of college for me was figuring out how to balance that wellness aspect and well-being aspect with also doing good work and doing a lot of as much as I can and pushing myself to do more. I definitely, to some degree, did kind of burn out in my second semester, or my fourth semester actually, taking way too many classes. Which I do not recommend taking tons of classes. I was taking like 6 classes and doing all this stuff, and
Ooh.
I think it definitely set me up in a good place now. Um, but it was definitely a lot, and so kind of learning to choose wisely what I was being involved in. Things I liked, like research, like volunteering with like helping on campus with um, new students who are like trying to figure out what they're doing with their time at Duke. Um, these are things that I kind of focused my energy on and got energy from, and like trying to see what those things are, and then leaning out of you know just doing endless work and seeing work purely and not like the quality of work as the measure of success, I'd say.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one of those things, studying, I guess, and learning in general is it can be a bit of a hamster wheel because it can be no matter how much we do, there's always more that can be done.
Mhm.
And that's also one of the balancing aspects of teaching,
Mhm.
speaking from experience
Mhm.
as well, is no matter how much you do, there's always more that you could be doing. And so where is that sort of healthy line of doing enough such that it all works, however also maintaining your own sanity and health and well-being in the process. So yeah, definitely like that. I didn't hear you saying anything about giving up amazing social life and all that sort of thing, but I'm sure you've had to do that along the way too, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. As an engineer, that's kind of the joke on campus. Duke is a great campus because there are other people who are not doing engineering, and the joke on campus is the engineers have no social life. It's always the case. Yes, yes,
Study nerds.
yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but it is, and it is something that you've got to be willing to go through that, I guess, the eye of the needle, right?
Mhm.
You've got to push through this really busy time in your life in order that you can come out the other end and still be busy, but maybe in different ways and be able to have a wider array of things available. So,
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
it's still possible to have social life. I think that's actually one of the things this year that was like an area of growth that I kind of selected was being like intentionally being spending more time with friends and things like that. Because if it's not intentional, then it will get lost in the busyness of
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes, very true. So tell us how you manage your intentionality then, because that's a really great point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think, yeah, definitely. So last year, so as a second in my second year of college, I was involved in writing for the newspaper. I was involved in uh, what we all call quad council, which is kind of a hall council for my residence hall. I was involved in
Mm.
teaching, teaching assistant, and research, and doing my 6 classes and all this kind of stuff, which is a lot.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so definitely coming into this year, what an intention was to like, okay, I can reduce my class load. Doesn't mean I have to do easy classes. It just means I have to be more selective about which classes I take, and taking classes that are required, but also classes that I really want to take, and being more intentional about that. So quality over quantity, and then also being intentional about just simply reaching out to people to hang out and get lunches and catch up with people. Um, it's definitely something that I think I've grown in. One other thing I've done this year is I took a position as a resident assistant, which is like one of the
Mm.
students in the dorm. I think that
Yep.
was also a great experience in the sense that it basically made focusing on building community in my local space into a job, like something that I had to do, right? Kind of forced me to do it. So I learned a lot in that area as well, organizing, sushi making parties and like checking in on people and things like that. So that was very much a growth opportunity for me in
Mhm.
choosing to
Yeah.
go into that way.
Yeah, amazing.
Hmm.
So, I'm really glad to hear that it's not like the stereotypical films about college life in America, with all the fraternities and
I
parties and sororities and all of that. I'm sure it happens too,
Yes,
but there really is actually learning and intentional study that happens because goodness knows, university is an expensive caper in America, so
yes.
it really is an expensive undertaking.
Yeah,
So
yes, it is. Yeah, and I mean,
yeah.
different people have different priorities in college. That's kind of what I meant earlier when I was saying like meeting a lot of people and then learning what people's goals are because different people have different priorities, right? That kind of lifestyle works for some people really well, um,
Yeah.
but that's not necessarily the path that I've found myself in, and I'm happy with that because this
Yeah,
is this is what I want to be doing. I'm doing what I want to be doing. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. So what would be your advice to other, students maybe still in high school and young people thinking about, what they want for themselves in
Mm,
life?
mm. Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with taking pride in doing like good work that you like. I think that's an important thing. That's kind of a value of mine. In the sense that like what I put out into the world, I want to be have like I have high standards for myself in that sense. Um, and I think
Mhm.
that's the best having something be driven by, your own personal standard is always the best case scenario. Um, so
Yeah.
that's definitely one big thing. Being curious is also another big thing. I think that's allowed me to approach school in not like a I have to do this kind of way, and a more in a this is what I like to do. And obviously for everyone, it's not. Maybe some people don't like school; they like something else. So everyone is different in that sense, and like being able to understand, what is it that I
Yeah.
really like, and do that as much as possible. Um, I think those are two big ones for me that I've
Mm,
always tried to hold on to. And then
I love that.
yeah, and then I mean, I guess maybe one last thing might be, and this is something I was very fortunate to have in high school, building relationships with teachers and other like adults outside of your parents who can give some advice as well. And it's not like I don't. My parents give very good advice as well. I will
Yeah,
say. Uh,
I get that.
but
But yeah, it's
yeah,
important to have the wider, that wider frame as well, yeah?
yes, exactly. Yeah,
And besides which, our parents tend to be a bit biased about us. They love us and we think we're amazing anyway,
yeah,
right? No matter what we do.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. So I love that you said being curious. I have actually in recent years interviewed a number of heads of schools from big international schools from around the
Mhm.
world, and one of when I asked them, with the rise of AI and all of those things that that we're now managing and using as useful tools in the world, I asked Chat GPT
Mhm.
what would be the most important sort of future ready skill to have, and ChatGPT said adaptability, which definitely is high up there,
Mhm.
being able to adapt and take on new ideas, because I think the only constant that we can count on is change, right? That's the only constant really, is that and it's just the pace of change that's getting faster and faster as we have all of these tools to help us and support what we're doing. But when I ask the heads of schools, they say curiosity is the most important skill and trait to be fostering in students, in terms of thinking of future readiness and being able to be handle, being able to take on and handle whatever comes our way as we move forward. So I love that you mentioned that yourself, because it is. And the other thing about curiosity that's important is when we're truly curious, when we're being biased and we're just looking for evidence for an opinion that we already have.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when we're being truly curious and open, we have to suspend our judgment and put that aside, to really be open to what is there, and uncover perhaps new possibilities, new ideas, all of that. So yeah, really, really great advice there. Thank you. And is there a quote or something that you've found useful for yourself along the way, or maybe even more than one, who knows?
Yeah, I definitely have one big one. I in high school, one book I read and really liked, and kind of a philosophy I discovered was Stoicism, Stoic philosophy. And there's one book called Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which I keep a copy of me all the time. So I like it a lot. It's for dealing with. It is actually kind of related to what you just said, dealing with change, dealing with challenges that come up. And one of the quotes from there, which I really like, is "The obstacle is the way." It's the name of a book. It's by Marcus Aurelius as
Mm,
well, but the obstacle is the way. The meaning of the quote is basically that the way in which you will grow the most, the way in which you will overcome a challenge is through the challenge. Like you have to, in dealing with challenges that come up, you learn more,
yeah.
you grow, you kind of become more resilient, and
Mm,
continue to and to the next challenge you approach from a stronger position because of the previous one. And so every obstacle that comes is the learning opportunity. It's not like something bad. It's not something to see as like this is a negative thing. It's thank you,
yeah.
universe, for giving me this challenge so that I can grow. And I think approaching life with that mindset has helped me a lot, especially when dealing with my engineering P sets uh, to do problem sets
Yes.
to do.
I
Yeah.
can only imagine. Yeah, thank you. What great advice. So really, thank you so much, Senou. It's been amazing to have you on the podcast and share everything. And so great that you've had, an amazing family life, but also the, community, school community, and now the community that's around you with your peers at Duke and the mentors that you've been working with. So congratulations on all your hard work so far.
Mm,
And wishing you all the very best for your future steps, and I'll be watching and with great curiosity to see where life leads you as well.
thank you.
So
Yeah, thank you for having
all
me.
the best.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for coming on. All right, so thanks everyone for listening. Another incredible episode. Thank you, Seno, for your sharing today. I'm a coach and consultant, and I work with teens to build self mastery and into leadership. And I also work with parents to know how best to support their teens' growth and journey, and try and smooth some of those bumps, the inevitable bumps that happen along the way with teenagehood. But and I also have a background in school education and international education. So reach out if there's any way that I can possibly help you. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to all of our podcasts and on all of the major venues in YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the big ones. And you'll find it there, Lean Into Succeed podcast. And if anyone is interested in asking Senou himself any questions, please reach out to me and I will forward those questions to him. So thank you for your listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.